But yeah, I guess what I'd like to get out of it is people just laugh. Whether you are 5, 6, 7 years old and you read the book and you're laughing, or if your parents are reading and they're laughing. I really think a book like this is going to have quite a few more adults laughing at it than even just the kids, because it's wacky in that way.
You're listening to Stephen Folker, a children's book author from Davenport, Iowa, discussing his latest project, Lewis Michaels' A Stinky Rat. He's our guest today on the podcast. Stephen, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me, Randy.
And how's the weather today out in Iowa?
Well, it is in the 30s. It is raining and it's icy, and there's potholes probably about 5 feet deep in the road. So not that great out.
Sounds like typical winter in the Midwest.
You got that right.
So, Stephen, before we get started, I just want to say thanks for being on the show today.
I appreciate it. I thought it was a really great show, and I'm really looking forward to being part of it.
So, Stephen, how did you come up with the idea for Lewis Michaels' A Stinky Rat?
Well, ironically, there's not, I guess, some big special story behind it. I have a 6-year-old, and he writes little books in his room probably every day. And he's always wanted me to kind of make up goofy stories, which I usually do, being a quirky dad. Well, anyways, he has this little method when he puts a book together where he'll take paper and he'll staple it together and put stickers on there and write his little story. He wanted me to do the same thing. So just making something random up, I just made up a story called A Stinky Rat, and I named him Lewis Michaels, and it was this whole elaborate story about how he ate wood chips and smelled bad and passed a lot of gas. And and anyways, I thought, okay, that's funny. I'm 35 years old and I laugh at it. So could I make something longer out of this, which would still be clean for a kid, but still kind of ring a tune as far as what the book is about? So sat down at the computer and cranked it out one morning and thought, hey, this isn't too bad. And there you go. So we now have Lewis Michaels, A Stinky Rat. Now I'm working on a chapter book that's probably geared toward kids a little bit older, but still in that, I guess, 6 to 8-year-old range.
And how did you come up with the name Lewis Michaels?
I just made it up on a whim. I don't know. I thought, what rat would be named Lewis Michaels?
Just popped into your head?
Yeah, I think that's about where everything comes from. I mean, there's really no thought behind it. It just kind of popped in my head, and I just thought it was a really ridiculous name and thought I'd roll with it.
Sounds good. So growing up, were you always into creative writing, or did it develop later on?
I was. In grade school, I used to love to make little homemade books and stuff and pass them around the class, and kids would read them and write a comment at the end of each book. And when I was in, I think it was 4th grade, there was this contest called Young Authors. I don't know if they still do that or not, but anyways, I entered that and I won first place with that. And I can't remember the whole scheme of it. It was a long time ago, but I remember we traveled somewhere, met some authors. They talked about if you want to write books when you get older and all that kind of stuff. And that was it. So yeah, I guess it was always there. It just kind of blossomed in different ways.
And growing up, did you have any authors that you admired or stories that you admired?
Well, as a kid, I mean, I had TV shows I really liked. I mean, I really used to like watching Mr. Bean, which who doesn't like Mr. Bean? But really anything that was kind of quirky and goofy and over the top, I really enjoyed as a kid. I mean, I really liked Harry and the Hendersons, just the part when the Bigfoot launches his head in front of the windshield. I mean, I used to love watching that part. But it's kind of weird, in life, how little nuggets of information kind of become embedded in your brain, and then you can spin it into something else. and that becomes a story or a book or a script or a comic book or whatever. Like you might be walking outside and see a homeless guy picking through a trash can, and the next thing you know it, you're writing a book about a homeless guy trying to make his life better. So I guess I kind of look at that to some degree with anything with writing.
Absolutely. So you talked about kind of sitting down at the computer and just writing Lewis Michaels, A Stinky Rat. Do you have a writing routine, or do you just kind of go with it when the idea pops into your head?
I just kind of go with it. I know everybody probably has a different, workflow and as far as how they put things together, but I try not to follow any type of workflow. I think the best way to write is just to do that, is just write. I think if you go about it in that manner, it's a lot easier to knock things out quickly and efficiently, because you can always go back and polish it. It's just a matter of getting out the first draft. Same thing with the second draft or the third draft, or however many it takes you to get to the finish line.
Yep, it's all about getting that first draft done.
Yeah, totally.
So what inspires you to continue writing?
I think it's my brain cannot stop moving. I mean, nonstop, I'm always thinking about an idea, and I have notebooks all over my house, on my dresser, in my office, in my workplace, in my car, because constantly I'm thinking of weird ideas, or maybe ideas that aren't so quirky, for stories. And it's like, I have to write something down. So I think there's always something kind of in the works.
Sure.
The children's books are kind of a new medium for me. I mean, I've been primarily focusing on writing screenplays. That's been kind of a big thing for me. So to some degree, writing a kid's book is a cakewalk, because instead of trying to write, 80 pages or 100 pages of something, it's, you're writing 3 pages, which is divided up over 35, 40 pages in a picture book. So I've enjoyed it. It's been relatively straightforward and not too much behind it.
And you mentioned your screenplays. Tell me a little bit more about your experiences with independent filmmaking.
Well, it's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of work. I think it just depends on what you're trying to get out of something, and if your goal is to get recognition in a film festival, or try to make a profit on something, or just make something to show to friends and family. I mean, it just depends on your goals.
And how did you become interested in independent filmmaking?
Well, with independent filmmaking, it's something I've always kind of wanted to do since I was a little kid. And when I was younger, I used to do these goofy little homemade movies with my dad's VHS camera and put them on the public access channel. And me and my brother and a couple of friends would do that for a while. And then, of course, that kind of faded. And eventually, making homemade movies just kind of hit a brick wall and stopped happening for a while. Anyways, me and a friend of mine from grade school, we reconnected and we made a short film together called The Mustache Movie. And it was just kind of a quirky, over-the-top film about a guy that has secret mustache powers. It was a very low-budget effort, but it managed to get into a handful of festivals and kind of reignited a inner flame and desire to keep making stuff. So from there, I kind of went on and written and directed. It's been like 4 or 5 more feature-length films. Yeah, so it's been a lot of fun. I mean, it's each project that we do, it's all about just, making something, trying to make it better for what we have to work with and get it a little bit further than the last one. So we've been doing a lot of goofy, quirky type projects, and now we're leaning toward doing stuff that's a little bit more on the serious side. But I guess where that ties in with writing for even kids' books is anytime you write a story, no matter what kind of story it is, whether it's a 10,000-page novel or a 5-page short story or a poem or anything. I mean, all writing is basically a 3-act structure, a beginning, a middle, and an end. And It's just, there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's just whatever sounds right when you do it. Yeah, and that's what I love about kids' books, because with kids' books, you can either make something that's like delivering a message, right? So if your book is about not being mean to other people, don't bully people, there's a message in there. Whereas something like Dr. Seuss was more about just writing these silly little rhymes that didn't necessarily make a ton of sense, but were entertaining. So it's just a matter of which angle you go. And I think with Lewis Michaels' A Stinky Rat, there's probably not a whole lot of merit behind the story other than entertainment, you know? And I think if a kid thinks it's funny, then it's a hit.
Absolutely.
Some parents may not like it, but I think with kid books, who cares? At the end of the day, you're out to entertain a child. There's always going to be some adult that doesn't like whatever book for whatever reason, or somebody, picks it apart. I don't like that illustration. Well, don't read it.
Yep, they have that choice.
You're darn right.
So you mentioned the independent film festivals. Did you ever get a chance to go out to one and showcase your work?
Yeah, we've had some decent success there. The first couple films I did, I didn't really pursue the festival route because I made a film, then somebody acquired it, and then I made another film, and then that was acquired. And I was trying to go about it in that direction. And then when I got to my third project, I had already had a company distributing it, but I thought, what the heck, I'm going to enter some festivals. And entered a handful of festivals in the Iowa region, and we picked up a bunch of awards and met some new people. But one of the festivals I met someone who supported the next film that I did. Yeah, we've done festivals, and they're quite a bit of fun. There's good and bad behind it. I mean, the good is it's nice to have to see a live audience watch a movie versus somebody getting it through streaming on their phone, where you can't really see what they're thinking. And it's also cool, if you do win an award, to kind of see that people appreciate it for whatever reason. And then, of course, the bad is you're playing the lottery, because film festivals cost money, and a lot of the bigger ones, the really famous ones, are virtually impossible to get into because a lot of those festivals are banking on selling tickets to get people to go to them. And the way to do that is to show movies with big name celebrities that cost a lot of money. So it's to some degree not as independent as one may think anymore. With your screenplays and your children's book that you're writing, did you ever have any mentors that helped you along your writing journey? Occasionally, with my screenplays, I've got a friend of mine that has been helping out since day one on a lot of my film projects, that I will call up and say, hey, this is an idea I'm working on, and I'll bounce it off him, and just to kind of gain a little bit of feedback. But and that's been tremendous. That's been a lot of help. But what I found is, and I think this would be good for anybody, for anything they're writing, is once you have an idea, and once again, don't overthink it, just write it down, whether it's on a paper towel or on your laptop, whatever, write it down. And sit down with 5 or 6 people and kind of mix it up. Maybe they're not people that you directly hang out with every day. Maybe it's somebody from your workplace or your church or, whatever. That way the opinions are going to be real. And just kind of read it in front of them and get their opinion. And I feel like people get a little bit further. Whereas I think the worst thing you can do is have people that are in the same business as you are give you feedback, because then you are going to get a biased opinion. So let's talk about Lewis Michaels' A Stinky Rat. Tell me about the premise of the book and what it's all about. Lewis Michaels' A Stinky Rat is basically about a stinky rat named Lewis Michaels that lives in a hole behind a wall. Well, let's just say he breaks wind quite a bit. And it keeps his friends away, even though that he's got like the longest tail in the basement. So he uses that to help his friends climb up cabinets and go exploring and all that stuff. And eventually he gets caught by the homeowner in the house who tries to smash him. And his friends, who he kind of pushed away from his flatulence, they have to basically help him back out again. And the writing style of it is lots of rhymes and like little, almost like riddles with words. It's very quirky and over the top the way it's written. So how did you get hooked up with the illustrator for your book? So basically with the Illustrator, I have kind of a different network of individuals I work with for like when I do like poster design work and occasional graphic design work. So just kind of reached out through my network and email after email, name after name, just kind of stumbled across like a top 5 and kind of went from there. Just kind of with my inner network. I know that a lot of folks are probably looking on Facebook or whatnot. That's probably a good route to look too. But, I think the key thing is to have a network with somebody. And then also for me, it was giving somebody who didn't normally necessarily do this kind of work the opportunity to try something new. Kind of like you paint houses and it's kind of like, hey, would you be willing to paint a car?
That's a good way to look at it. So how would you describe your typical reader out there? What age group and what are they into?
It's all about identifying the audience, which is something I'm still kind of working on right now for this project. But I mean, I would assume, for a book like this, it would be probably geared toward kids that are, maybe in the 6 to 8-year-old age for age. So kids 6 to 8.
What would you like readers to take away from your book?
I would say I just want people to be entertained. That's it. Is just be entertained, because I think people are so serious anymore today that people have almost forgotten to laugh at things. And I think with a book about a rat that smells bad and almost pushes his friends away, but then he has to make up with them and they come back around to help save him. I guess there is a message there, which is you have to accept your friend even though he stinks, right? Because he's still your friend. And he's not trying to do it to be mean. He just smells bad. But yeah, I guess what I'd like to get out of it is people just laugh. Whether you are 5, 6, 7 years old and you read the book and you're laughing, or, if your parents are reading and they're laughing. I really think a book like this is going to have quite a few more adults laughing at it than even just the kids, because it's wacky in that way.
So what advice would you give to the younger version of yourself who's just starting out as a screenwriter or a children's book writer?
Don't worry about what anybody else thinks. Just write what you like, and that's it.
And you mentioned other books. Do you have any other projects that you're currently working on?
Well, for kids' books, I'm working on another, book with rhymes and stuff. And for the Lewis Michaels series, I'm working on another one that's a chapter book that's going to be a little bit less on the rhyming spectrum and a little bit more on just the telling a coherent story. But yeah, I guess before I put those out there, go too far with those, I'd like to at least get this one put out there and see how much traction we can get.
And when your book is available, where can readers buy your book?
So right now we're looking at doing a release on Amazon. That's probably where it will end up going. Yeah, I would say right there. I mean, we may end up having other outlets, but for right now, that's what we're looking at.
Okay, so that's all the time we have for today. Stephen, thanks so much for being a guest on the show. This was a lot of fun. Thanks for stopping by today.
Thank you.
And thank you, listener. You make this all possible. If you like this podcast, feel free to support us on Patreon and consider subscribing. The link to Patreon is in the description. Also, be sure to subscribe to the email newsletter to receive email notifications when new episodes are available. And as always, thanks so much for listening. Stay inquisitive, support the arts, and keep creating. Bye for now.